When I first met your grandma, your daddy told me he wanted me to go over and have dinner with them. And I had seen her, but I did not like actually meet her, just saw her from distance. So he come pick me up and we went over to their house. They live on Corbett Avenue, and we went in and it was just a regular house looking, nothing really fancy. And we were sitting in the living room, Ronnie and I, and we were just kind of talking. And all these loud banging noises started coming from the kitchen. And I was like, what in the world? I know my eyes were as big as saucers. And your daddy just sit there like it wasn't nothing to it. And I kept hearing a grunt and a moan or a really weird sound. And I'm going, what is wrong with this? And so all of a sudden I heard dishes. Just like when you set a table, everything's like setting it neatly and you might hear a little noise. But it was like cling, cling, bam, cling. It was just awful. And so I looked at your daddy and I said, what is wrong with your family? Do they fight? And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you they were deaf.
My family was from the West. My daddy was from Dallas, Texas, and my mama was from Chickasha, Oklahoma. We were born in Dallas, Texas. In 1955, we moved to North Carolina. They say that when we came over, that they pulled a trailer that had like a covered wagon that came over the mountain. So instead of going west, we were coming east. We settled in a town called Morganton, North Carolina, where my daddy became a school teacher, a vocational teacher for the deaf school. My mama didn't work, she stayed home. Basically, I grew up in the world of silence. My daddy could talk real normally. He didn't lose his hearing until he was about 21, I was told. I was told that he had to go to the Army, and he told the people that he could not hear, but talking so well, they didn't believe him. So finally, after about a day in the Army, they realized he was deaf, so they discharged him. Growing up as deaf parents, sometimes as I was hearing, felt kind of, I would say, embarrassed or felt out of place, kind of, how to deal that with other people. But now that I have, my hearing has gone bad, being the middle child, it's more easy to adapt and try to accept,
After getting to know Miss Marjorie Mayfield, she's a very sweet little old woman, little white hair, probably a little over 4 feet tall, very short, very humble, very meek, very quiet spirited. As time went on, I had to make some decisions in my own personal life about her care as she lost her husband. And after she lost Mr. Mayfield, she was very dependent on her son, her oldest son. And so I made a decision to quit working and stay with her because she had begun to have signs of Alzheimer's and losing memory of stuff and sitting and waiting all the time for Mr. Mayfield to come home and not remembering how to do certain little simple details to where she could be by herself. So I went in and I quit my job and I stayed in her home with her. We moved in with her, stayed with her, and I would help her with her daily routines, and I would be her companion, and I would talk with her, and I would sign with her, and I would share emotion with her when she would be grieving Dad's death. Then, I just let her sit there and grieve it, and then the next 5 minutes she'd be asking, when is Daddy coming home? And it got to a point that it was more than I can handle, and we had to put her in the nursing home. And putting her in a nursing home was very hard because they didn't have a nursing home for deaf people. And we had to put her in a nursing home that was hearing equipped and trying to get the people to understand that they were going to have to figure out how to communicate with her. They just more or less figured since she had Alzheimer's, and even on her good days when she could talk to you a little bit and tell you things, they did not benefit her good days to help her adjust to being in the nursing home. and they would just put her in wheelchairs, just like they do regular hearing people, and just let her ride up and down the halls just like she wanted to. If she ate, she ate. If she didn't, she didn't. I had issues with that. I had a hard time with that. And so I really got a little cock with it one day and just made up my own mind that that was not where she was going to stay. And so I went and I got her. And I brought her back home without the permission of her children, and they called them and said that I had kidnapped her from the nursing home. And I didn't care, because I realized that they weren't helping her even on her good days. Like, they would help people with their minds, and people who could talk, and people who had led normal lives. When they were having good days, they treated them like they were having good days. With Ms. Mayfield, she was in a world of her own, and being her companion for a long time, I began to learn her world, and I made her world a place where she could see where she was that would help her memory in making it. And we made a book when she went to the nursing home, and we put pages in it of her kids and put their names on it, put pages in it of you when you were small and a child, and whose daughter you were, and who your mama was, and different things. And that way, some days it would help her just to sit there and look through that book on her good days. And she would talk about her family, but they weren't paying attention to her because they didn't see her as a normal hearing person.
What I know about my daddy was, when I was growing up, little boy, my daddy was a hard worker. He's always worked and had a job. A lot of times, he had a lot of skills. I mean, even though he was a teacher, he started out teaching shoe repair and upholstery. But a lot of times I noticed in the summertime, when he out school's out, he would have jobs, paint houses, woodwork. Later he had woodwork, many things he could make. He made things for people. Upholstery. I remember one time he fixed this couch for this lady, and all he charged that lady was a homemade chocolate pie. I mean, that was just the way he was. I mean, it was just a jack of all skills over her. He could talk very well. You would never realize by what he talked. He was even deaf because he could read your lips so well. Somebody said this once. They said, if your daddy could hear, I wonder how much further he could go. It wasn't an insult. I believe he meant it as a compliment, because my daddy, even his handicap, didn't let that hold him down. I mean, he was the father, he was the husband, he was the provider, he was the leader. So many things he could do. And not only that, he knew business, and he could, about real estate, finance, all these things he knew that he had as a father and as a leader, you know. So even though he had that handicap, he didn't let it, and you never put nothing over him. I think a long time ago, when I grew up, some people thought deaf people were just deaf and dumb. Somebody said that deaf people are probably the most neglected people of all. The hearing people feel uncomfortable of being around them, like, oh my goodness, he's going to sign to me, you know, and I'm not going to be able to communicate, you know. They won't engage, you know. The deaf person will engage with you, you know, and even if they know you can't sign, or they'll be going halfway and try to, you know, get it across, you know.
How would you classify our family?
Just a little bit. How our family is?
Yeah. Do you think we're a hearing family?
I think, as a whole, we try to be a hearing family. But I think to some small point, we are recognizing we are really more of a deaf family.